Hi, it's Carrie. Let's examine using limits and filters in searches. In systematic searching, we work hard not to introduce bias into our search. For that reason, we typically do not make very many limits on our search. Let's talk about some common misconceptions around applying limits. It is not recommended to search for English articles only, as this creates a language bias. Even if you ultimately cannot get an article translated, you should still be aware that it exists. Date limits on searches should be justified. If you are investigating the effectiveness of an intervention that did not exist until 1999, then it makes sense to limit your search to 1999 and onward. However, if you aren't sure when the intervention came about, or if your topic is slightly more ambiguous, it does not make sense to impose a date limit on your systematic search. Finally, you might think that using database-provided publication type limits is useful, but it's absolutely not recommended for systematic searching. For example, if you limit by publication type in PubMed, you are automatically limiting to publications which have only been indexed with medical subject headings. Many articles in PubMed never get indexed with medical subject headings, so you've eliminated a large set of literature that you might like to see. The same goes for male, female, humans, animals, and age group limits. Rather than apply database-provided limits for these topics, try instead to build a search that will retrieve articles regardless of whether they've been indexed, or think about if you really need the limit in the first place. Many limits can be screened for during eligibility screening instead of during the search. Which brings us to filters. Limits are something you can apply in the database, while filters are typically akin to a search concept, although the terms are used interchangeably. There are some validated and well-regarded search filters that you can use and cite. The Cochrane Handbook has a Cochrane Highly Sensitive Search Strategy for identification of randomized controlled trials in Medline, Embase, and now CINAHL. It can be found in the technical supplement of Chapter 4 of the Cochrane Handbook. There is an Intertask Information Specialist subgroup search filter resource. There is also a Flinders Filters page. These resources, among some others, contain filters that you can use and adapt for your own purposes. If you decide to use or adapt any of these filters, please be a good searcher and cite them. One thing I don't recommend is blindly using documented searches from previously published systematic reviews. Remember that just because they are published does not mean they are good. Only recently has search quality and reporting really gained traction. If you really want to use a search strategy from a previously published systematic review, please work with an information specialist or a librarian to update the search strategy accordingly. So remember, don't use limits or filters without being able to justify the reason why you used them. In other words, don't use filters and limits simply to decrease the number of results and make less work for yourself and your team. This is not acceptable. Do use documented filters from well-regarded organizations like the Cochrane Collaboration, Intertask, and Flinders Filters if it is appropriate for the search topic. Always cite the filter and note if you adapted it. In Part 8, we'll talk about translating the search across platforms.